You're seeing this right now because something bigger is about to happen in your life. And I'm not talking about coincidence. I'm talking about a shift so deep that it will completely change the way you see your problems, your pain, and even your achievements. You feel like something needs to change, don't you? That feeling that life is pushing you in every direction and you have no control over anything. Well, the greatest thinkers of the ancient world felt exactly the same way. And they discovered something so powerful that it transformed emperors, slaves, and philosophers alike. And today, you're going to discover that secret. But before I reveal the most powerful transformation of all, the one that will appear at the end of this video, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel right now, because what you're about to hear might be exactly what you've been missing to break free from this cycle of anxiety, frustration, and fear. And believe me, the revelations ahead will make you question everything you thought you knew about happiness and success. So let me ask you something. How many times have you woken up feeling like the entire world was working against you? How many times have you caught yourself complaining about traffic, your boss, your relationship, your bills? And then, when something finally goes right, you breathe a sigh of relief for a few days, until the next storm hits. It's as if life were an endless roller coaster, and you're just a passenger with no control at all. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy that teaches the exact opposite, that you can be the pilot of your own life, no matter how much chaos surrounds you? I'm talking about Stoicism. And no, this has nothing to do with being cold, emotionless, or robotic. That's one of the biggest misunderstandings about this philosophy. Stoicism is about inner strength. It's about looking at a storm and consciously deciding how you're going to respond to it. It's about understanding that you don't control what happens to you, but you have complete control over how you react. Think about Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived. He was the emperor of Rome, commanded armies, and made decisions that affected millions of lives. But do you know what he wrote in his personal journals? He wrote about his inner struggles, about how hard it was to get out of bed in the morning, about how he constantly had to remind himself to be patient, fair, and virtuous. Marcus Aurelius had everything the world could offer, yet he knew that true power wasn't on the throne. It was within him, in his ability to remain calm while everything around him was on fire. Now think about Epictetus. This man wasn't born an emperor, he was born a slave. He belonged to another human being for much of his life. He endured physical abuse that left him permanently injured, and yet what did Epictetus teach? He taught that even a slave can be free, because true freedom doesn't live in your external circumstances, it lives in your mind. No one can take that away from you. You can lose everything, but if you keep control over your thoughts and your reactions, you are still free. And here is the first great lesson that will begin to turn your life upside down. You are not suffering because of what happens to you, but because of the meaning you give to what happens. Read that again. Let it sink in. Your boss criticizes you unfairly. It's not the criticism that hurts you, it's the meaning you attach to it. You tell yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, everyone hates me. And that's when the downward spiral begins. But what if you change the meaning? What if you thought, this is an opportunity to grow, to prove myself, to build resilience? Same situation, completely different reaction. The Stoics had a phrase that sums this up perfectly. It's not things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those things. That was Epictetus, and he was absolutely right. Think about two people who lose their jobs on the same day. One falls into complete despair, sinks into depression, escapes through destructive habits. The other sees it as a fresh start, a chance to pursue something better, to reinvent themselves. Same external event, completely opposite outcomes. Why? Because of interpretation, because of the meaning assigned to the event. So you want to know what the big shift coming into your life really is? It's this. You're going to stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of your own experience. And this isn't toxic positivity. I'm not telling you to pretend problems don't exist. I'm telling you to recognize that problems will always exist, but your power lies in how you deal with them. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, was one of the wealthiest men in Rome and an advisor to Emperor Nero. Yet he spent years in exile, far away from everything he loved. And do you know what he did during that time? He studied, he wrote, he strengthened himself from the inside, because he understood that exile didn't define who he was. It was just a temporary circumstance. And when he returned, he was wiser, stronger, and more prepared. So answer me honestly, what in your life are you treating as a tragedy that may actually be just a difficult chapter? What obstacle are you seeing as an unbreakable wall when, in reality, it might just be a step towards something greater? The Stoics practiced a powerful exercise called premeditatio malorum. They would deliberately imagine the worst things that could happen, losing everything, betrayal, illness, even death. And do you know why? Not to live in constant fear, but to strip those fears of their power. When you've already imagined the worst, when you've prepared yourself mentally, fear loses its grip. You realize you can survive. You can adapt. You are stronger than you think. And this is where the real transformation begins, because true transformation begins the moment you understand that life isn't happening against you. Life is simply happening. And every single second you have a choice to make. Will you respond with wisdom, or will you react with desperation? Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be engraved in everyone's mind. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Think about that for a moment. He didn't say it depends on how much money you have. He didn't say it depends on finding the perfect partner. He didn't say it depends on landing your dream job. He said it depends on your thoughts. Because at the end of the day, you can have everything and still be miserable, or you can have very little and still experience deep inner peace. How many people do you know who seem to have it all but live unhappy lives? How many people achieved material success and still feel empty inside? And how many simple, ordinary people have you met who radiate genuine joy? The difference isn't external circumstances. The difference is philosophy. It's the way people interpret and process reality. And if you're enjoying this content so far, go ahead and hit the like button right now. It helps more people discover wisdom that can literally change lives. Stay with me, because there's much more coming. The Stoics divided everything into two simple but revolutionary categories: things you can control and things you cannot. And guess what? Most of what keeps us up at night falls into the second category. You don't control what people think about you. You don't control traffic. You don't control the economy. You don't control whether it rains on your wedding day. You don't control whether someone loves you back. You don't control whether you get that promotion. But you know what you do control: your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your reactions. That's it. And paradoxically, the moment you stop wasting energy trying to control what you can't and focus fully on what is within your power, your life changes dramatically. Because all that anxiety, frustration, and suffering came from one place: trying to control the uncontrollable. Epictetus said, if you want to be happy, don't try to control what you can't. Control what you can. It sounds obvious, right? But how many hours have you wasted replaying an argument that already happened? How many nights have you spent awake worrying about something that may never even occur? How many times have you gotten angry in traffic as if your rage would magically make the cars move faster? That's wasted life energy. That's throwing your personal power in the trash. And the Stoics understood this more than 2,000 years ago. They knew that human beings suffer more in imagination than in reality. Have you noticed that? How most of the things you fear never actually happen? How your mind creates catastrophic scenarios that almost never come true? Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Your brain is a problem-generating machine. It evolved to keep you alive by identifying threats. But in the modern world, it constantly sets off false alarms. You're not being chased by a lion. You just have a difficult meeting tomorrow. Yet your body reacts as if it's the same thing. Which leads to another core Stoic lesson. Learn to distinguish between real danger and mere discomfort. Most things you avoid aren't dangerous. They're just uncomfortable. Having a difficult conversation, starting a new project, ending a relationship that no longer works, changing careers. None of these will kill you. But discomfort makes your brain scream that you're in mortal danger. The Stoics practice something radical. They deliberately place themselves in uncomfortable situations. Seneca, even though he was wealthy, would occasionally sleep on the floor. He wore simple clothes. He ate basic food. Why? To train his mind to understand that discomfort isn't the end of the world. To build resilience. To remind himself that even if he lost everything, he would still be okay. This is mental training at the highest level. It's like going to the gym, but for your inner strength. And do you know the result? When something truly difficult happens, you don't panic because you've trained for it. You've proven to yourself that you can handle discomfort. So ask yourself, what mental muscles are you exercising right now? Or are you constantly chasing comfort? Because when you live only in your comfort zone, every obstacle feels overwhelming. But when you intentionally train yourself to face hardship, you become nearly unstoppable. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, betrayal, plagues, and the death of his children, and yet he maintained his composure. He maintained his virtue. How? Because he understood these things were part of life. He didn't expect life to be easy. He prepared for it to be hard. And when it was hard, he was ready. Do you expect life to be easy? Are you shocked when problems arise? The Stoics would say you're resisting reality. Life is hard. It always has been. It always will be, for everyone. Accepting this isn't pessimism, it's realism. And from that acceptance comes deep peace. Because when you stop fighting reality, when you stop complaining that things should be different, you free up an enormous amount of energy. Energy you can use to face challenges effectively, instead of wasting it on resistance. Epictetus taught, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish that they happen as they do, and you will be happy. That doesn't mean passivity. It means working hard on what you can change and calmly accepting what you can't. That's the essence of the Serenity Prayer, which actually comes straight from Stoic philosophy. So tell me, what are you trying to control in your life that you should be accepting? And what are you passively accepting that you should be changing? Because learning to distinguish between the two is the key to a life of purpose and inner peace. And the transformation continues. Because the transformation continues when you begin to realize something fundamental. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of them. And that distinction changes everything. Marcus Aurelius practiced a daily exercise he called seeing things as they really are. He would look at a lavish banquet and think, this is just a dead bird and a dead fish. He would look at fine wine and think, this is just fermented grape juice. Sounds strange, but it served a profound purpose. He was training his mind not to be seduced by appearances, to see through the illusions that make us slaves to desire. Because the truth is this, most of us don't want things for what they are. We want them for how we think they'll make us feel. You don't want the luxury car. You want the sense of status you believe it will give you. You don't want that specific relationship. You want the feeling of being loved that you think it will provide. You don't want the dream job. You want the sense of fulfillment you imagine it will bring. And here's the problem. You're outsourcing your inner peace. You're telling yourself you'll only feel whole once you get something external. And you know what happens when you finally get it. The feeling lasts a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then you're already chasing the next thing, because you never addressed the real problem, which lives inside you. The Stoics called this hedonic adaptation. Your brain quickly adjusts to improvements in your circumstances. That new apartment you dreamed of? 3 months later, it's just where you live. That raise at work? Soon it feels insufficient. That perfect relationship? Before long you start noticing the flaws. Seneca observed something brilliant. We suffer not because we have too little, but because we desire more. Think about the wealthiest people in the world. Did they stop wanting more? No. They keep accumulating, competing, never satisfied, because the problem isn't quantity, it's insatiable desire. But here's an important clarification. The Stoics were not against having good things. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. Seneca was extremely wealthy. They didn't live in caves. The point is your relationship with what you have. You can possess wealth without being enslaved by it. You can lose everything and still keep your dignity. That is real freedom. Epictetus, who had once been a slave, taught this. Wealth does not consist in having great possessions, but in having few needs. You are freer when you need less. When your happiness doesn't depend on 1,000 external conditions being met. When you can be content with the basics, everything beyond that becomes a bonus. Now pay close attention to this insight. The Stoics discovered that the path to having more is wanting less. Sounds contradictory, but it works. When you stop desperately chasing external things, when you cultivate inner contentment, you act with more clarity, more confidence, more purpose. And ironically, that often makes you more effective at getting what you want. The person desperate for approval behaves needily and pushes people away. The person at peace with themselves naturally attracts others. The person desperate for money makes fearful, reckless decisions. The person at peace makes wise decisions, guided by reason. Do you see the pattern? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He had palaces, armies, and treasures, yet he understood that none of it was necessary for happiness. What was necessary lived within him, and it lives within you too. But there's another Stoic teaching that might shake you to your core. Amor, Fati, love of fate. Not just accepting what happens, but loving what happens. Centuries later, Friedrich Nietzsche would say, "My formula for human greatness is amor fati," that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely to bear what is necessary, but to love it. Sounds insane, to love loss, pain, failure. But think about it this way. Everything that has happened in your life brought you here. Every pain taught you something. Every failure strengthened you. Every loss made room for something new. If you could go back and change one event, you wouldn't be who you are today. And if you weren't who you are today, you wouldn't be ready for what's coming next. The Stoics saw every obstacle as an opportunity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's profound. You don't encounter obstacles on the path. The obstacles are the path. They are exactly what you need to become who you're meant to be. Think about how many times something that felt devastating at the moment later revealed itself as a blessing in disguise. The job you didn't get that crushed you. 3 months later, you found something far better. The relationship that ended and broke you. A year later, you realized how toxic it was. The business that failed, it taught you lessons that made your next one succeed. Life has an intelligence of its own, and often what you think you want isn't what you actually need. The Stoics trusted this. They trusted that the universe has order, even when it looks chaotic. They believed that everything happens for a reason, even when we can't yet see what that reason is. Seneca said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." But he also understood that many opportunities arrive disguised as problems. The prepared person sees opportunity where others see only disaster. The Stoic-minded person asks, in the face of every challenge, what can this teach me? How can I grow from this? How can I use this to my advantage? So reflect for a moment. What problem in your life might actually be an opportunity in disguise? What pain could be preparing you for something greater? What loss might be making space for something better? And there's more ahead, because there's so much more ahead. And what comes next is going to completely change how you think about time. The Stoics had a healthy obsession with something most of us try to ignore: mortality. They meditated on death every single day. And before you think that sounds morbid, understand this: it was actually the opposite. It was their way of living fully. Marcus Aurelius would wake up every morning and remind himself, "I could die today. The people around me could die today. Nothing is guaranteed." And do you know what that did? It made him present. It made him value every moment. It stopped him from postponing what truly mattered. Because when you remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on nonsense. Seneca wrote something that should be permanently etched into everyone's mind. It's not that we have too little time. It's that we waste so much of it. Life is long enough if you know how to use it, but most people live as if they're immortal. They postpone their dreams. They save the good clothes for special occasions that never come. They avoid important conversations. They collect regrets. Do you live as if you have all the time in the world? How many things are you putting off? That trip you've always wanted to take, that conversation you need to have, that project that's been sitting in the back of your mind for years, that forgiveness you need to ask for or give. Are you waiting for the perfect moment? Let me tell you a secret. The perfect moment doesn't exist. The moment is now. The Stoics practiced something called Memento Mori, remember that you will die, and alongside it came carpe diem, seize the day, not in a shallow, pleasure-chasing way, but in the sense of living with purpose and intensity, of being present, of doing what matters now, because now is all you have. Epictetus said, "It's not death that a man should fear, but never having truly lived." How many people reach the end of their lives filled with regret, not for what they did, but for what they didn't do, the chances they didn't take, the words they didn't say, the love they didn't express, the time they wasted worrying about meaningless things. Here's a hard truth. You are dying right now. With every passing second you have less time. That's not a depressing thought. It's a liberating one. Because when you truly internalize it, you stop postponing your life. You stop living on autopilot. You start making conscious choices about how you spend your days. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Imagine if you knew today was your last day. Would you waste time complaining about traffic? Would you argue over trivial things? Would you hold grudges? Or would you call the people you love? Would you say what needs to be said? Would you do what truly matters? The Stoics weren't afraid of death. They were afraid of wasting life. And there's a huge difference. Death is inevitable. You don't control when it happens. But wasting your life? That's a choice. And you make that choice every day, in every moment, by how you spend your time and energy. Seneca observed that many people complain that life is short, yet live as if it were endless. They waste years in jobs they hate, in toxic relationships, in destructive habits, in empty entertainment. And then, somewhere in their 40s or 50s, they wake up in panic realizing half their life is gone, and they did nothing meaningful with it. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can wake up now, today, this moment, and decide to stop wasting the present by obsessing over a past you can't change or a future you can't control. The only moment you truly have is this one, and this moment is enough. The Stoics were masters of living in the present, not because they ignored the past or the future, but because they understood that all action happens now. You can't do anything yesterday. You can't do anything tomorrow. You can only act now. So put all your attention, all your energy, all your presence into this moment. And there's more. The Stoics understood that every relationship is temporary. Everyone you love will die someday, or you will die first. Is that depressing, or does it make every moment with them infinitely precious? When you hug someone you love, hug them fully, because it might be the last time. Epictetus advised, when you kiss your child, remember that they are mortal, not to live in sadness, but to appreciate that kiss, to be present, to stop taking things for granted, because nothing is guaranteed. Everything is temporary, and it's exactly this impermanence that makes life so valuable. So let me ask you, who do you need to spend more time with? Who do you need to tell I love you? What project are you delaying? What dream are you saving for later? Because that later might never come. And if today were your last day, would you be at peace with the life you lived? The Stoics had a powerful practice at the end of each day, self-review. They asked themselves, what did I do well today? Where can I improve? Did I live according to my values? Did I waste time on things that don't matter? And then they used those reflections to live better the next day. Seneca said, when the light is out and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and review what I've done and said. I hide nothing from myself. I overlook nothing. Why should I fear my own mistakes when I can say, see that you don't do this again, but for now I forgive you? That's radical honesty with yourself. No self-deception, no excuses, but also compassion. Acknowledging your mistakes without destroying yourself over them. Learning and moving forward, because every day is a new chance to live better. Because every day is a new chance to live better, and the Stoics understood that a virtuous life was never about perfection. It was about constant progress. They even had a word for this, prokopton, the one who moves forward, the one who is on the path. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be better today than you were yesterday. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at the time, constantly wrote about his own shortcomings, about losing his temper, about getting distracted, about how he could have acted better. He didn't do this to punish himself. He did it to grow, to become a better version of himself each day. And if even an emperor needed that kind of daily inner work, what does that say about the rest of us? The truth is, you're never going to arrive. There will never be a moment when you are perfectly stoic, perfectly wise, perfectly virtuous. And you know what? That's a good thing, because the goal isn't the destination. It's the journey. It's who you become in the process of trying to be better. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues meant to guide every action: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These aren't abstract ideas. They are daily practices. Wisdom means seeing things as they truly are. Courage means doing what's right even when you're afraid. Justice means treating others fairly. Temperance means controlling your impulses. Think about how many decisions you make every day that involve these virtues. Angry at someone? Temperance means not exploding. Witness an injustice? Courage means stepping in. Offered an unethical shortcut? Wisdom means saying no. Have power over someone. Justice means not abusing it. Epictetus taught that you may not always succeed in external outcomes, but you can always be virtuous in your internal intentions. You can't control whether you get the job, but you can control whether you act with integrity in the process. You can't control whether someone loves you, but you can control whether you treat them with respect. You don't control the outcome. You control your character. And here's something truly revolutionary. Your character is the only thing that truly matters. It's the only thing you always carry with you. It's the only thing no one can take away. You can lose everything, but if you keep your character, you've lost nothing of real value, and you can gain the entire world. But if you lose your character, you are the poorest person alive. Marcus Aurelius once asked, what is 4,000 years of fame compared to eternity? Nothing. But what is a life lived with virtue? That has eternal value. Virtue doesn't die. The impact of a virtuous life echoes through generations. Marcus Aurelius still inspires us nearly 2,000 years later, not because he conquered lands, but because he lived with integrity. Seneca said, live among people as if God were watching you. Speak to God as if people were listening. What did he mean? Live with integrity even when no one is watching, and express your spirituality through your actions in the world, not just in private thoughts. How often do you act one way in public and another in private? How often are you one person around others and someone else when you're alone? The Stoics would say that's living in contradiction, being a slave to other people's opinions. True freedom is being the same person everywhere because you live by internal principles, not external expectations. And speaking of freedom, the Stoics had a radical view of it. Epictetus, who was literally a slave, taught that the only truly free person is the one who lives as they choose. And how do you live as you choose? Not by getting everything you want, but by wanting only what's within your control. Not by being driven by external desires, but by internal virtue. Someone enslaved by their desires is never free. They're always chasing the next thing they believe will complete them. They're manipulated by advertising, social status, and other people's approval. They have no center. The Stoics, on the other hand, had an unshakable center, living in accordance with human reason, living virtuously. They also understood something fundamental about human nature. We are social beings. We don't live in isolation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What doesn't benefit the hive doesn't benefit the bee." You don't exist apart from humanity. Your actions affect others. Others' actions affect you. We are all part of something larger. That's why justice mattered so much to the Stoics, not just avoiding harm, but actively doing good, contributing to the community, helping others. Because when you lift others up, you lift yourself up. When you harm others, you harm yourself. We are all connected. Epictetus said, "You are a citizen of the world, not just of your city or your country, but of the entire cosmos. And as a citizen of the world, you have responsibilities. You can't live only for yourself. You must consider the greater good. You must think about how your choices affect not just you, but everyone around you. So I ask you, what legacy are you building? Not fame, not fortune, character, impact. Are people better for having known you? Do you leave places better than you found them? Do you treat others with dignity and respect? Because in the end, nothing else matters. The Stoics believed in something called cosmic sympathy, the idea that everything is interconnected, that an action here ripples outward, that we are all part of one living organism. When you truly understand that, you stop seeing others as competitors or enemies. You see them as fellow travelers on the same path. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, treated slaves with dignity because he understood that external circumstances don't define a person's worth. We all share the same capacity for reason, the same capacity for virtue. A virtuous slave is greater than a corrupt king. And here's a hard truth. If you constantly find fault in others, the problem may be you. Seneca warned, "You are only as unhappy as you are judgmental." When you judge everyone around you, when you focus only on what's wrong, you poison your own mind. The Stoics practiced understanding, not condemnation. That doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. It means recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles. Everyone is doing the best they can with the understanding they have. When someone acts badly, it's usually out of ignorance, not malice. They don't yet know better, and your task isn't to punish them, but to teach through patience and compassion. And now we're getting close to the final revelation. And now we arrive at the final revelation, the one I promised at the beginning, the one that will completely seal this turning point in your life. After everything we've discussed about control, mortality, virtue, and connection with others, there is one Stoic teaching that ties all of it together, and it is the most powerful of all. Universal love, unconditional love, not only for those who love you back, but for all of humanity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'Today I will deal with meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and antisocial people. They are this way because they cannot tell good from evil, But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and I recognize that the wrongdoer shares a nature related to my own. Do you understand what he's saying? Even the people who hurt you are human, just like you. They make mistakes the way you do. They suffer the way you do. And your task is not to hate them, but to understand them, and if possible, help them. Because when you respond to hate with hate, you become part of the problem. But when you respond to hate with understanding, you break the cycle. The Stoics believed that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Who suffers from your anger? You do. Whose mind stays restless? Yours. Who loses sleep? You. The person who hurt you probably isn't even thinking about you anymore, but you're slowly destroying yourself from the inside. Does that make any sense? Seneca wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Don't lower yourself. Don't become what you despise. Protect your virtue. Protect your dignity. Because the moment you act with cruelty, you've already lost. No matter what the other person did, you are responsible only for your own actions. And here is the deepest twist of all. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of resentment. It's about reclaiming your personal power. When you hold on to resentment, you're giving that person control over your inner peace. When you forgive, you're saying, "You no longer control my happiness. I am free." Epictetus taught that no one can harm you without your cooperation. Because the real damage is never what someone does to you, it's how you respond to it. Someone can insult you, but it only hurts if you accept it as truth. Someone can betray you, but it only destroys you if you allow it to define your worth. So here's the final question I leave you with. Will you continue to be a victim of circumstances, of other people, of your own unexamined thoughts? Or will you take full responsibility for your inner life? Because that is the choice the Stoics offer you. It isn't easy, it never was, but it is possible, and it is the path to true freedom. Marcus Aurelius, in the final days of his life, sick and exhausted, was still writing about virtue, still choosing gratitude, still choosing compassion, because he understood that what matters is not what happens to you, but who you choose to be in response to it. And until your very last breath, you have that choice. Life will knock you down. That's guaranteed. You will experience loss. You will face betrayal. You will feel pain. But the Stoics show you that you can move through all of it while preserving your humanity, your dignity, and your inner peace. You can be like a rock in the ocean. The waves crash endlessly, but the rock remains steady. And here's the most beautiful paradox of all. When you stop chasing happiness desperately, when you focus on living virtuously, happiness appears as a byproduct. When you stop trying to control everything, you gain control over what truly matters. When you accept death, you finally begin to live. So if you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I choose inner freedom." Because that's the essence of everything we've talked about. That's the turning point entering your life right now. You no longer have to be a slave to circumstances. You can be free here, now, always. And before you go, let me ask you one thing. If this video impacted you in any way, if something here resonated with your soul, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because this wisdom isn't just for you, it's for everyone who is suffering unnecessarily, trapped in destructive patterns, who has forgotten they have power over their own mind. The Stoics taught this wisdom over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they are no longer here, but their words remain, their legacy remains. And now this wisdom is with you. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you keep it as interesting knowledge, or will you apply it, practice it, and transform your life? Because in the end, philosophy is not about knowing, it's about being. It's not about theory, it's about practice. Every day, with every choice, every breath, you have the opportunity to live stoically, to choose wisdom over impulsiveness, courage over fear, justice over convenience, moderation over excess. And on the screen now, you'll see 2 videos that will take this journey even deeper. One on applying Stoicism in personal relationships, and another on using this philosophy to overcome modern anxiety. Because the journey doesn't end here. It's just beginning. Remember, you don't control what happens, but you control who you are. You don't control others, but you control your reactions. You don't control the future, but you control the present, and the present is all you truly have. So live it fully, live it virtuously, live it free. The Stoics show you the path, but you are the one who has to walk it. And the good news, you've already taken the first step. You made it this far. You opened your mind. You're ready for the turning point. Now just keep going, one day at a time, one choice at a time, until this philosophy is no longer something you study, but something you are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your openness. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, remember, freedom is within you. It always has been. You just needed to be reminded. Memento Mori, Amor Fati, live well.